Hey, everybody. Welcome to Trauma Triggers and Transformation. Today is Sunday, July 21st, and we're going to be talking today about um, the path to healing, right? And sometimes how that path could be weighty, right? So I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Um, Y'all know that this is still very new to me, but I promised you guys I was going to show up every Sunday, and I'm going to show up every Sunday. All right. So, everyone, just for those who don't know, I am a trauma recovery coach and a mental health first aid instructor. My mission in life is to inspire a greater level of hope and humanity by helping individuals to navigate through the emotional and mental health challenges of life that we all face. So thank you again for joining. I'm really excited to share with you guys some insights and some strategies that not only do I give my clients, but those strategies that I help with myself. Because we know that recovery and healing is not a destination that we arrive to, right? It is something that as long as we're on this side of heaven, that we're going to continue to go through that journey. And if you like me, sometimes on that journey there's challenges. Sometimes on that journey it is hard. Um, and so what I want to share is try to understand like even the impact that the recovery process sometimes have, right? Because sometimes it really do have an impact. Um, it have an impact emotionally, it have an impact physically, it have an impact psychologically. And the recovery process sometimes have us feeling the burden of life, right? Um, and sometimes those burdens hinder us from being able to move forward. And I was reading Hebrews 12:1, which encourages us to lay aside every weight. I'm actually going to read it, and from um, I am reading it from the New Living Translations. So this is Hebrews chapter 12. And it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily set us up. And let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion, who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. When I think about that and I think about the process that Christ had to go through, his whole process, even that last part of him going toward the cross in spite of the shame, right? In spite of that had to be a burden for him to fail his assignment, right? The shame that he was carrying, the shame, the embarrassment, whatever it is that he could possibly feel in. When the word encourages us to lay aside the weight, right? I think that the first step we have to do as we are in this process of recovery is acknowledging the weights that we are carrying because of the aftermath of the trauma that we have experienced. And those weights could be the emotional pain, right? If you was in a relationship and you've experienced a breakup, sometimes that weight is the emotional pain of that. Other weight could be the negative thought patterns, right? Because when we experience um, our sometimes the traumatic experiences changes our belief in ourselves and our belief in ourselves and our belief in others, right? And so it can help us to form negative thought patterns, right? And then those unresolved memories sometimes that hold us hostage to our past, right? Um, and so I think that it's really important that we recognize these burdens rather than suppressing them. So oftentimes I will tell my clients that when you are triggered in that moment or when you have that opportunity and you're in that safe space to process your feelings, to really think about what's triggering you and why. Right. And so I encourage everyone to take a moment to reflect on the emotional weight in that moment that they may be carrying. Right. So for a few minutes, if you want to, you can press pause and you can go get a piece of paper and a pen. And I just want you to write down some things that could be burdens to you. Remember, acknowledgement is taking the first step. What is a weight that you are carrying in your trauma recovery process? That weight could be the shame of what you're going through. So you're going through it by yourself. You don't want to tell nobody. That's a weight that you're carrying. Maybe it's because the fear of what somebody is going to think of you, or maybe it's because you have this false expectation that you got to be perfect. And if you don't present yourself perfect, then nobody is going to accept you. Whatever that false weight is that you're carrying, I want you to write that down, right? Because acknowledgement is that first step. And then the next thing is to identify whatever harmful patterns that you are in, right? The Bible says to lay aside the weight and the sin that so easily beset us, right? Um, we understand what sin is, right? So, but when we're thinking about this and the lenses of trauma recovery, let's look at it as far as anything that goes against the will of God for our life, anything that goes against the goal that we are trying to achieve, right? Anything that holds us back to the old version of us that we're trying to grow from and heal from, right? And so, to me, this refers to harmful behaviors. It refers to unhealthy coping mechanisms like substance abuse. I can remember a long time ago, before I even understood trauma, before I even understood what I was going through, before I even had a relationship with God. Um, I, Tylenol PMs was how I was coping, and I didn't realize it back then. But I would take a Tylenol PM to go to sleep at night because whatever was going was on my mind so much that I couldn't sleep. And I would stay up, and so the Tylenol PM would help me to just go to sleep. I didn't realize at that time that that was such an unhealthy coping mechanism. I didn't even realize I was taking those to cope. In my mind, I was just taking them to go to sleep, not realizing why am I not going to sleep naturally, right? And so being able to whatever those harmful behaviors are, maybe you didn't even realize like what you were doing was coping in an unhealthy way, right? But whatever that harmful behavior is, whatever that behavior is that you feel like you got to do in order for you to get by, you got to do in order for you to make it throughout the day or make it throughout the night, right? And so it could be substance abuse, it could be self isolation. um, Before I will share that shame keeps us isolated, but support, it is what's needed in our journey of healing the trauma and recovering from some of our pain. But because of shame, because of guilt, because of fear of what others may think, we'll withdraw from support and try to deal with things by ourselves, and we'll isolate. And that's the trick of the enemy that will lead us into depression if we're not careful, right? And see, we want to make sure that we are identifying these patterns. When we identify these patterns, we can begin to understand what's holding us back from progress. And so I want you to think about like what are some unhealthy coping mechanisms that you've noticed in yourself and how are they affecting your healing journey? I shared with you that I didn't know back then, and this has to be like over 20 years ago, but one unhealthy coping mechanism was me taking Tylenol PMs at night simply because I just wanted to go to sleep, and that was how I was able to go to sleep. I was doing a lot of worrying. There was a lot on my mind. I was brokenhearted. I was just depressed. And I didn't want to feel like that. So I would take Tylenol PMs to go to sleep. So think about it and write it down. Okay. What are some unhealthy coping mechanisms that you've noticed in yourself and maybe you didn't even pay attention to it? Right. And how is it affecting you on your journey? So the next thing I believe that Hebrews 12 and 1 shines a light on and makes it an important step is the importance of letting go, right? The Bible says to we have to lay it aside, means we got to be willing to let it go. Letting go is so crucial for our recovery journey, right? This means letting go of the feelings of guilt. It means letting go of the feelings of shame. It means letting go of the feelings of anger, letting go of any um, uh, emotion, right? That is often accompanied because of the trauma that we experience, being able to let go of unforgiveness, being able to let go of pride, being able to let go of anything that is disrupting your healing journey, that is disrupting your recovery process. And that could be challenging. Letting go is not easy, right? It's not easy to let go of thought of mindsets that you have had for so long that have helped you survive. It's not easy to let go of coping mechanism that is the reason why you are still here with us today. It's not easy to let go of those negative patterns, but if you are listening today, then this is your sign that it's time to let it go. If you are listening today, if you are listening to this right now, then this is your sign that this is a moment where it is time for you to let go so that you can free yourself from the emotional shackles, right? So that you can free yourself from the prisons of your pain, so that you can free yourself and stop holding yourself hostage to your past. It's time to let go. If what you have been doing and the way you have been thinking and your behaviors is not conducive to the woman or man that you are trying to become, the version of yourself that is healed, the version of yourself that is whole, the version of yourself that is free, then it's time to let go. It's time to let go. Because when we can let go, then we can move on to the next step, and that's embracing a new path. As we move forward, we have to remember to run with patience, right? The race that is set before us. We have to remember that healing is not a linear journey, it is non-linear. And so on this race, you're going to go up and down, and that's okay. Being yourself kind and being kind to yourself and having compassion for yourself is so needed. As you are running this race, it requires for you to have understanding and be understanding with yourself and be compassionate with yourself. And then you have to remember that it's okay to progress at your own pace. Whether it takes you 6 months, a year, 3 years, doesn't matter. It's your pace. And guess what? God's grace is sufficient for you on the pace that you take on your path of recovery. Just keep moving forward. Just don't stop. If you even have to pause for a second, but do not stop. Do not give up. Don't give up on your desire to be healed. Don't give up on your desire to be free. Don't give up on your desire to see the healed version, to see and have those desires and those dreams come back. Don't give up. And make sure that you are positioning yourself with support. The Bible says in Hebrews 12:11 that cloud of witnesses. To me, that cloud of witnesses is your support. That cloud of witness is your cheerleader team, right? Reminding us that we are not alone on our journey. We are not alone. Surround yourself with supportive individuals. Surround yourself with supportive friends, supportive family members, supportive co-workers. Get you a trauma recovery coach. Get you a therapist or a social worker that can provide you with that encouragement that you need and education that you need to help you to move forward. Listen, we're all recovering from something, one way or another. For some, it may not be as heavy for some as it is for others, but it is important that we continue to run this race of healing from the pains of our past, that we continue to run this race and recognize the patterns, any type of behaviors or any type of thought patterns that will hinder us, that will be a barrier to us, that we continue to build beyond those barriers on our path to rejoicing, on our pathway to healing, on our pathway to freedom. So I just want to encourage you on today, apply these principles, right? Apply the principles. Um, what may work for you may not work for somebody else. And so you just have to keep trying. Don't give up. I encourage you to stay on your journey of healing and winning from within because you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve to know what it's like to live a life that God has predestined for you. You deserve to be fruitful and multiply in every area of your life. You deserve to live a life full of joy. You deserve for your hope to be ignited. You deserve it. You are worth it. So thank you again, guys, for joining us. I just wanted to come on and be brief and just share a little bit with you about the pathway to rejoicing as you're on your journey of trauma recovery. So I hope I've said something that was helpful to you. Please post your comments, your questions, your thoughts in the comment box, and I will definitely come back to engage with you. Until next Sunday, have a wonderful one.